Good morning. My name is Tom Cross, and this is an executive seminar on building a corporate intelligence agency with artificial intelligence. The goal here is to stop business, IP, or intellectual property, espionage, and sabotage now. I'm sorry about the throat, but it's awfully dry here. It's only 10 degrees, and not sure it's going to warm up today. The key is that if you've got questions, the slides are in the handouts, as well as you've got my email and contact information if you'd like to have more information about this process. A few ideas here, but in the meantime, we have a brand new course called Enterprise Sales Acceleration. It's a very exciting 1 to 3 day class on really improving direct and channel partner sales. We've done it for years and years. We just kind of reorganized it, brought it back together here in a new approach. And so please take a look at that. You're welcome to contact me about that. A few road rules here. My job is to speak. Your job is to listen. If you get done before me, you're free to go out to play. Or looking at another way, you can read 5 times faster than I can speak, and I'm certainly counting on that. So moving right along, why build a corporate intelligence agency? The real challenge, what I've seen in nearly 40 years of business, is that you cannot predict competitive hack attacks either in M&A, advances in tech, or anything else, nor react to them. You can only direct your customers to your content and thought leadership. What I mean by that is it's a very complex process because things are changing so fast out there. What you find is the barriers to entry have changed. New people come and go. Players you never heard of before have a major market share. They're coming after you. And what I find is that companies really aren't responding. We saw Dennis Muhlenberg yesterday at Boeing, and we saw what's going on there. And tomorrow I'm doing crisis communications. And without further ado, I will leave that till tomorrow. But you need to remember, this is not a drill. This is what's going on. We also find that we're seeing more and more competitive intelligence attacks go public. We're seeing them in the news, that people are not just hiding behind the scenes and just saying, well, we're spying on other people, or we're going after them, but really more public, I call it sabotage. They're coming after you. And so whether you sit there and wait or wonder, whatever, you need to kind of create a whole process here. And what I find is that the lack of a centralized corporate intelligence agency result in some strategic market and product failures of monumental proportions. This is a quote from one of our clients. This course got our thinking organized and the foundation of a really cool concept. So this does work, and it's absolutely needed. You can't just sit around and wonder what's going on because you won't be around long enough to know. And there's another quote here that I won't read, but you have time to read it right now. Anyway, there were real results from doing this, and it's time to get on with it. And I like to think is build your own. You can't just, there's no real off-the-shelf systems out there. You can kind of hobble together different kind of concepts, maybe some marketing technology tools out there. They call MarTech, et cetera. But I don't think that really gives you an overall view of things. Also, you need to remember that there's different kinds of ways to look at corporate intelligence, and one needs to be prepared for that. I call it the ultra AI system. What are you really letting your customers know and your competitors know about what you're doing out there? And so you need to be kind of rethinking your whole approach to this whole process. Okay, so we're going through the top 10. Realize your management is the most significant cause for intelligence leaks. What we've seen actually in that Boeing thing, the more things that come out of that is that there are people, and you whether call them whistleblowers or just concerned citizens or concerned employees out there. And I think that you have to be prepared for that and also integrate that in the whole process. There are many good books out there. This is a great book on spies, et cetera. Goes way back. It's really about World War II, but it kind of sets the whole stage for what I call human intelligence and signal intelligence or machine intelligence. So you need to kind of be constantly aware of what's going on out there. And here's just some of the more headlines in the news that's going on. And, I think that you just can't do enough to protect your intellectual property these days. Spies are going to be coming at you from all different directions. And as you'll hear later, 80% of computer crime is done by disgruntled and dishonest employees. So it's coming from internal and external. And if you just use external tools, you're not going to capture internal activities that are going on out there. Okay. start with listening, global issues, emerging trends, industry outlook, offensive speaking, competitive insights, and toxic media. Keep that all organized, that, what is going on out there. You need to have the kind of global view of things on, and then basically understand how things are changing demographics are going to impact your customer base out there. You don't need any more Kodak moments, Sears, whatever company you've seen come and go. It's happening on a faster basis. This isn't really just data diving into your CRM system, because we find in our other class we teach on strategic customer assessments, most people just think that their CRM is their customer. Well, that's the person whose name is on the check, or maybe the buyer or whatever, but that's not the person who actually uses your solution out there. So make sure you're incorporating a lot of this information in there before you end up in bankruptcy, and that's the whole process out there. The last part of it is that your own decision making could be a real problem here, and if you're not incorporating your own organizational velocity, is the term I like to use, then you're not really realizing where you're going out there. Research and analyze your own customer and external content messaging. That's just what I call the surface level. The old song about the ocean's really a perfect disguise on top, and so you really have to look way below that. But then you have to start with the content. What is that content telling you about them, and what are you telling them about you? So you kind of have to keep in mind that there's a lot of significant risk of competitive analysis and response. So keep that in mind as you move ahead out here. One of the things that I like to think of is that, as I mentioned just a moment ago, that you start with internal tracking of corporate information. Make sure that you do support whistleblowers or what we call see something, say something approach, and make sure that it's all integrated into your whole process there, because they're the feet on the street that you really need to keep that information flowing out there. You can also reward people for providing good competitive intelligence information out there. Realize that your content has got its own life cycle out there. I like to think of these just some interesting ideas for gain, close, and retain stages out there. But at the same time, is that make sure that intelligence that you're putting out is also you're gathering back in. What do you know about those customers out there? So that when you come up with a competitive intelligence, you're not just relying upon some sort of research organization and those big consulting firms out there to do it. You're doing it yourself. Make sure that content is, well organized in your own information. Make sure that everything as you're approaching is that how to make your own content more competitive out there. Make sure that you're building on all kinds of different levels out there. The other thing that is really key is that make sure that you're tracking the different kinds of customers out there. Maybe you call them groups, maybe you call them large accounts, and these are just 20 different types of customers out there. But make sure that those are kind of organized into their own competitive intelligence system. Because if you're going through the channel, which everybody seems to be going through, what do you know about your channel partners out there? What do you know about their customers out there? How is that integrated into your whole process out there? Because if you're only talking to channel partner, you really don't know who the real customer is out there. The other part of it is that competitive intelligence drills into those involved in the decision of your solution. You will never know all of them. Many companies are doing more and more outside due diligence of their purchasing. In other words, they're outsourcing their purchasing for larger items, whether it be security testing, some kind of analysis, etc. I think that kind of intelligence gathering should be really brought in-house. I don't think you just can rely upon a research company's research report, because they're just giving you what they think is going on. It doesn't tell you what you really know. The next part of it is that you start building your own this content system. Keep track of all these kinds of things: political events, government, technology, and random. Make sure that you're looking both drill down and high in the sky as you move through this whole process. I think it really helps you give a better flavor for your own product development, your agile systems, whatever processes that you're going on out there. Another approach that we came up with for one client was build a heat map, or some people call it a spaghetti weather map. You've seen that on TV where you see the hurricanes coming up, and you see all these different kind of, we'll call it spaghetti noodles out there. Which way? Well, I'm going to go that way. I think somebody else is going to go a different way. So you have to keep in mind that through that whole process is that how is your own heat map gathering information on your competitors out there? Because your product per se is just part of a larger ecosystem of what impact is going on. And so when you see, for example, in the case of Boeing, take a look at what's happening to all their parts suppliers out there. They've been sitting on their thumbs for more than a year now, and every month the Boeing 737 MAX back in the sky approach is getting pushed out. It was November, now it was February, now it's March. And what that really means is that no one really has any idea when that's going to come back online. So make sure that those kind of competitive types of information are being tracked so that you can respond and direct your own strategy to build what I call a cross-net point, where you're kind of incorporating a lot of information into your own heat map. And again, this is where it becomes really critical that you not rely upon outsiders to do this. You rely upon your own inside intelligence, because again, you're getting, hey, if I watch the weather, the weather report, is that what's the weather going on in my area? And these are just different kind of points that you can kind of put them together in kind of your own heat map, whether it be content, technology, brand, random, or whatever. But make sure those are kind of, whatever you're trying to do, make sure that they're all organized so that you can kind of get a daily report of what's going on out there. I like to think of AI as, if you've read my book called Mind Meld, you can get it on iBooks. AI is not an autopilot. It's not a machine intelligence. It's not just machine gathering, big data, or whatever. All that tells you is gives you more information to analyze. And maybe it's really, I like to say, is that saying you have AI is not AI. It's just fake tech, as AI is not just an algorithm. And an algorithm is just a rule of thumb. We found in doing a lot of research in our AI market and product validation strategy that what happens is that AI will solve one kind of soup, but not another kind of soup. May help you build one kind of tennis shoe, maybe a basketball shoe, but not a hiking boot. So AI is not just one thing. However, AI is coming. I do think that as whatever that the intelligence, and it's kind of like you see in people that they're really good at one thing, but they're not good at others. Some people are really good at riding a bicycle, but not flying a plane. And so that's where kind of AI is today. It's more, we'll call it specific. At the same time, is that general AI is just too far away to really have any idea what's going on out there. Again, you build in your AI system where you merge mental human intelligence and machine intelligence, encompassing all business elements and divisions. So again, that's the whole process. And then you can overlay AI and say, what is it we really want to know out there? What kind of intelligence are we gathering out there? I like to think is that you start looking into the platforms you build these things on. This is not a coding exercise. This is a knowledge database, conceptual strategy exercise. At the same time, is that quantum computing is coming, and the technology is coming around that you can use more and more high value, high power technology to solve your problems out there. Again, use the technology as you see fit, but again, it's not building your own strategy. Just for those who are interested in what I consider AI, there's 3 types of AI out there. There's vertical. Again, it's a soup, makes one kind of soup, but it can't make, pasta or bread. And so you kind of have to keep that in mind. That's what I call vertical intelligence. Horizontal intelligence is, we as humans can do all kinds of things at the same time. We can, go from one right to the left here, and we can ride our bicycles, we can drive a car, and we can even actually then go out and fly a plane without even thinking about it. Maybe not at the same time, but at the same time as we can start doing things using the knowledge that we've gained of one process or system to do another. Oblique really builds on the whole idea is that humans and human intelligence is very kind of emotional. It's not just a logical process out there. And so human behavior is also kind of takes different ways we go out there. Society is a very complex system out there. And so whether you're incorporating, jokes, music, technology, touch, emotion, etc., into your whole process, it makes the whole concept really more AI out there. So each form, whether vertical, lateral, or oblique, offers unique challenges to the developer, user, and benefits to society, build cross points or intersections to meet specific goals. And so you can build your own system out there, whether it be for, we'll call it this corporate intelligence system. You can use it for designing products. You can design it for solutions. You can design it for customer interaction out there. And so you kind of have to go through your own assessment process, and you build these things as you move through the whole process of gaining intelligence. This doesn't happen overnight. We also see this as, you could deliver this as a smartphone app or whatever, and then provide that content back out to the field. Make sure that everyone, it's not just you and your team gathering information, it's a whole process of news gathering across the whole process. And I put this slide in here because we've used it in our other presentations to remind people that AI is just not one thing. And if you do, it's going to fail. And it's going to fail in all kinds of reasons. And here's just a few of them out there. And I'm not going to go through each one of them, and you can read them. If you're reading them, you can see what they all are. But at the same time is that there's going to be more types of failures that exist out there, as we found in other types of systems that, we haven't really seen adversarial inputs or attacks on AI systems because, again, they're used in very narrow circumstances. And the other thing is that you have to be careful that, again, the data you're gathering out there could be poisoned. So are the people really telling you what you need to know or what they want you to know about themselves? You may have seen in cybersecurity the term honeypots. That's where a big company like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or whatever creates separate websites to attract hackers to those honeypots out there that keeps them away from their main systems out there. So you have to keep in mind there's a lot of different ways you're going to attack this whole problem out there. Okay, a little bit of AI humor. It's not, I'm not a robot. What are robots out there? What are they going to be out there? I think it's going to be that people are going to build these kind of systems out there, and we're not sure where they're going to go out there. And then here's, the other one is that if you have your boss as an AI system, maybe your sales quota is an AI system, what value is it really? And the other part of it is that what happens when, the robots and AI systems go wacko out there? What's left? You end up basically with your head in the sand. So make sure that you're keeping your eye going forward, not looking back over what you just ran over out there, because that's what happens, that most data, AI systems today, are built on old data. Think about it. Where does that data come from? It's not coming from new information, new sources. It's looking at old data in different directions that you may not be going in the right direction. So make sure that things are going in the right direction you want to go out there, and make sure that your data is looking forward, not backwards. And I like to think of it as that marketing is in danger of degenerating into a graveyard for statistics because it is inclined to regard intelligence as an end into itself. Data by itself does not provide intelligence out there. Regarding social media, I'm kind of mixed on that. There's great uses for it. At the same time, is that beware that it's been weaponized. As one senator said, or congressman said, it's a flamethrower of information out there. So make sure that, as we talk about tomorrow in our crisis management, that you are not just reacting to what's going on social media. You are building your own systems out there to deal with it, because terrorism continues and will continue forever. You just look at history. You read that spy book. Foreigners have been basically involved in spying and espionage and sabotage for nearly 100 years now. And it's only going to get worse, maybe thousands of years probably. So keep in mind that crises can kill your bottom line. You've got to put in your ultra AI system, your competitive intelligence system. What's going on out there? Make sure that you're dealing with these issues right up front, and so that you're responding on your own terms, not just their terms. I'd like to think is that this is not a drill. I keep mentioning that before. Won't drill down into 737 MAX anymore. It's just too much in the news. It's every day in the news. So you have to be prepared for when these things, your corporate intelligence agency should be able to respond to these kinds of conditions. In cooperation, whether you want to have a crisis separately, crisis management separately, or built in, you have to be prepared for all these kinds of events out there, because what happens is that terrorism and cyber attacks are going to continue to grow out there. And for the purpose of this presentation, terrorism are events perpetrated by others against you, and trust. And that's the key part of it, is that as you move forward in this whole process, how are you building your own trust systems out there? I don't need to tell you about what's, Mark Zuckerberg said last week. He appeared more like a robot than I could ever imagine. he didn't really respond to what they were really concerned about. It seemed like they asked a question and he would answer in a different direction. So you have to be prepared to actually address these issues as they come about, to respond to all the AI deepfakes and disinformation that's going on out there. It's just going to go on and on and on, because the real goal is really to build trust. And I don't know how you keep it yourself, maintain it yourself. It's something that you have to work on every day. You have to continue to build trust with your customers, your stakeholders, whoever's involved in the whole process. We put together what I call 4 trust areas, 4 players in this: authors, actualizers, auditors, and analyzers. And again, you can read this information on your own, because if you don't trust, you're going to rust. So authors are the people who create the information throughout the whole system. A lot of it's legal, a lot of it's filings. You have to keep in mind that a lot of this is regulatory compliance issues. The actualizers are the people who use the data, touch the data, manipulate the data. How are they using that data? How are they storing the data? What are they doing with the data, et cetera? And so then you have to kind of think through, again, we're doing all this kind of content, marketing, strategy, sales, et cetera. Auditors, maybe, I think that what we find in corporate intelligence agencies is the whole kind of content audit process that seems to be overlooked in many places. They, marketing and salespeople just put out all this stuff. It's all dysfunctional and often disorganized. And at the same time, people don't really see how it fits together. So when you see it used in the public, you're going to go, wait a minute, we were in a wrong area here. We need to kind of look at this whole process. And then what I call the actualizers or analyzers is that they review and check the auditors. In other words, audit the auditors. Make sure that they're auditing the right information at the right time, because that's the other process. Yeah, we've seen people review content, often content, the larger the company, any kind of content, public relations, press releases, et cetera, all goes through legal. So the legal department in some cases has become this, it's not a corporate intelligence agency, it's more of a corporate gatekeeper. They're saying, well, okay, this is fine, this doesn't violate the law, this doesn't violate our antitrust rules, whatever the rules may be. But what you find out there is that it spins up to the top, that the new social CEO reports that CEOs are spending 50% of time articulating and defending themselves and the company on public policy issues, like Zuckerberg did last week, Muhlenberg did yesterday. So again, you can't outsource this to lobbyists. The lobbyists are, in some cases, their value is going in a different direction. Their value is dismissed because the Congress people want to see the CEO on stage. They're not going to wait for some lobbyist to show up. They're going to issue the subpoena to the CEO or other leadership. Doesn't mean you can't bring other people with you, but on the other hand, make sure that this starts to recognize that your reputation is based on this kind of content, this kind of approach out there. So the benefits, though, is that you really can improve thought leadership. You can improve organizational leadership. What do we tell our customers? What customers really seeking out there? We find out there is that marketing pushes out the customers in one direction, but it's not really useful for the customers in a different direction. Because, again, the customer that they're talking to, salespeople are talking to, is not the decision maker. And the content is not written in a manner designed for content review, content analysis, and what I call through all these other things out there. But if you do it right, it accelerates channel engagement, improves sales lead generation, because again, you're gathering information and presenting it back to them so they can use it. Because again, they're not having to sift through mountains of website information to make a decision. I like to think of it as that if you don't do this, you're really going to end up at the bottom. And the other real problem is that in corporate life cycles, it's longer and longer and longer. And the more you delay this, the more you don't do information, the more you don't do this, the longer the sales process is going to take. And the result is, I call 4x4, it used to be 3x3, 4 times the time and 4 times the money. So maybe you can stand the money, but maybe you can't stand the time, because in the meantime, your competitors are coming after you, and all you're doing is reducing your bottom line to zero. Trends out there, lots of key trends out there. I like to think that, you've got to keep, this is the kind of, we'll call it futuristic, pie in the sky, blue sky fortune telling kind of things out there. But, make sure that your corporate intelligence is gathering information, because I like to think is that quantum computing has been kind of rumored about for a long time, but it's really coming online much faster. And I think that you're going to see some major players out there. You saw Google last week or last 2 weeks, IBM, really make major inroads. And I'm talking not quantum computing at we'll call it a large university or a science research center, but within the next few years, we're going to see it really available, at a much more practical level to much more people. So keep in mind that you really have to build this AI system and keep things going too far, out there. Keep in mind that trends are coming and going. So one thing that people talked about a lot is whether you call them drones or robots or whatever. The real thing is how they're going to be weaponized. And I really don't think that anybody has a feel for that, but, be prepared for that. Again, I've mentioned quantum computing, be accessible by all. Privacy is a myth that we're not going to have, maybe never had, but it's only going to get worse because corporate spying is going to take over. The next area is technology implosions. I think that we see out there is that the impacts of BP oil spill, which is this picture's from, and other things, really, you can't really get your arms around all the types of impacts out there, whether it be a hurricane, the tsunami, takes out a whole city, et cetera. There's also going to be what we'll call viruses. Mosquitoes are not going to go away. We can try to deal with a lot of these types of things out there, but we've got to be prepared for the worst out there. Conclusions, ultra concepts do work. This CIA or corporate intelligence agency approach does work. We've built it on many different systems, different approaches out there. I don't think that it can't be done if you want to do it. It's just that people think that they should be doing something else. But you can build it yourself. This course is not, this webinar is not just about, what I can do to help you, but you can do it yourself. Build your own ultra crisis intelligence system. It's an art, not a science. As design, development, delivery takes time as a repeat cycle. You keep repeating. Develop your own crisis analytics, because your business, your own corporate organism is its own system, and you need to understand how that works. Understand, you might want to take different ways to approach this. Legal discovery is kind of interesting. If you look at how that works, it's called discovery, and how legal processes go through that. It's a legal approach, but that kind of analysis can be used in different directions. You can iterate until you have viable solutions, test, and repeat until you do some more. Don't take on everything all at once. A little bit about my background. Here's some references from Evan Kirstel, one of the great social media leaders out there. Here's another colleague who works at Gartner, about my skill sets out there. These are some of the other things that we're building out there. Again, crisis management. This all integrates as my favorite. Well, I'll say favorite. They're all favorites. But accelerate through a strategic customer analysis. It all starts with the customer. What happens is that, corporate intelligence kind of sits, maybe in an ivory tower, but it's still got to be attached to sales, customers, where things are going out there. You're welcome to get my book. You can read the other thing we do out there on building or validating AI systems, which is kind of useful exercise out there. And I think it's kind of an interesting approach to kind of, before you build anything, you need to understand what the goal is out there. So we're at the bottom of the hour, and I want to thank you very much for spending 30 minutes with me today, and all the best to you, and I hope you all the best. Cheers.